Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Good evening again. So glad that you're all here tonight. It's good to see you. It's good to have just some chill out time in the discussion rooms to say hello and see how people are doing. Tonight, I've got a short little talk for y'all that I'm calling Back to Basics. At least that's what I've titled this talk. And this is coming from a variety of things. And if you see me looking off to the side, that's where my garden is, and I've been watching the birds all day. So that's where my gaze is going as I think. I'll try to be focused on you, but the little sparrows are awfully enticing. I've been thinking a lot about responsibilities, anxiety, stress, how we work with these things, moving in and out of different environments. I work in a place where Buddhism is not the norm. I work in a hospital as a healthcare chaplain. And the worldview I bring with me is one that is not often articulated. I may bring it with me, it may support me, but we certainly don't talk about Buddhism very much or Buddhist ideas very much. Sometimes we do, especially if I'm talking with another Buddhist chaplain. But a lot of times that sort of just gets put to the side a little bit. And the other thing I'm thinking of tonight is that Dharma Rain, also right across the street from me, where I can see from my window, is holding their summer session right now, the Three Robes Retreat. And this is a retreat that is led by our lay teachers. We've got 3 lay teachers who are collating the retreat this week. And Three Robes is pointing to a teaching of the Buddha that says, sometimes monks wear 1 robe, sometimes they wear 2 robes, sometimes they wear 3 robes, depending on what they need. So there's this idea that there's some flexibility in attire, in the form, but also that attending to one's needs, attending to one's personal needs is also a part of practice. Being able to assess, what do I need? What environment am I in? Is it cold? Do I need an extra robe? 1 robe, 2 robe, 3 robes. And the way this sesshin functions, the way it incorporates that idea of 3 robes or 2 robes or 1 robe, is that there are blocks of sitting, big blocks of sitting, 2-hour blocks, 2.5-hour blocks, but there are no bells in between to carve up the periods of zazen. So usually in one of our sesshin, we'd sit for 25 minutes and there would be a bell and a posture adjustment. And we would sit for another 25 minutes and there would be a bell for kinhin. And then after 10 minutes of walking meditation, there would be a bell to sit down. We'd sit for 25 minutes. And there would be another bell for a posture adjustment. And then we'd sit for another 25 minutes. And there would be a bell to get up, have a break, go to the bathroom, whatever. So if you're familiar with sesshin, you realize it's very structured time-wise. And in this 3 robes sesshin that's happening this week, there's a lot more space. And within a block of sitting, an unstructured block of sitting, people can decide when it is right for them to get up and do walking meditation, or they can do lying down meditation, or they can decide they want to go walk through the garden in a contemplative manner, and they can decide when they want to come back in and sit down. So each person has this option to attend to their needs in meditation, which is very different than our normal structured sesshin. So in putting this talk together, I've got both my experience in the hospital and also the awareness that this three robes sashing is happening that has a very different form than people are used to. And in holding these two ideas, what I found myself reflecting on that sort of binds them together is this sense of, or this question of, what can be relied on when our supports for practice change? What do we rely on when we're in a different environment? Say we're in an environment that is more secular, whether it's a hospital or whether it's a library, whether it's a neighbor's house, whether it's the grocery store. Do we leave our Buddhism at home or quiet in our hearts? Or what parts of it do we take with us? And also, what do we rely on when our environment changes in terms of forms and structures and bells? When we have an established pattern of practice, I know many of you have personal practice that is very regular every day at a particular time for a particular length. And what happens when that changes? You go on vacation or you have house guests, and all of a sudden that sense of this is how it is shifts. It can be unnerving. It can feel unstabling. It can feel unanchoring. Is this resonating with anyone? Just out of curiosity. I got a head nod, I got a smile, another head nod. Okay. I want to make sure I'm connecting with you, with all of you. It can be easy to fall into this sense of the way things should be, or the way practice should be. It can be easy to fall into a sense of the only way I talk about practice is to use Buddhist language. And I've had the challenge of being a Buddhist chaplain in healthcare. And I know some of you work in healthcare, so you've got the same conundrum of having to code switch. How do I talk about what's important to me without using words like dharma or karma or pretas? Without using things like, ooh, I'm stuck in the God realm today and it is great. Or like, ooh, I just did a thing and I'm going to end up in a Vici hell for that one. Guess what? You don't want to end up in a Vici hell. That's one of the worst ones. So going in and out of places where we change our language, when we change how we express ourselves, when we change how we talk about what is most important to us. I think one of the beautiful things about Sangha is that when I'm with Sangha, I get to use my Dharma words. I get to use my Buddhist words. I get to say cold hells and hot hells, or Avicii hell. I get to use words like rebirth. I get to use words like dukkha, or shila, or prajna, these words that we borrowed from Sanskrit or Pali. Words that convey meaning and deeper understanding that are sometimes hard to translate into English. Although I'll say that, many Zen temples right now are doing a lot to put Buddhism into plain English to make it easier for people to understand. Because wrestling with Sanskrit words or Pali words can be a barrier for people coming into practice. So we do this code switching on a variety of levels. But one of the things that I have found as I navigate this transition between worlds, between temple life and hospital life and home life, is noticing how often there's a grasping on to this is the way it should be, or this is the way practice is, or this is the way I practice. And like having this internal insistence that this is how it is. When I first moved out of the temple, which I had lived in the temple for a decade plus, there was such a sense of culture shock. Now, granted, you guys probably have an easier sense of what I'm talking about today than I might have, so I'm looking forward to hearing your comments about how you wrestle with some of these things I'm bringing forward. So when I find myself code switching, when I find myself feeling that strain of having to translate again and again as I'm getting through a day, as I'm getting through a visit with the patient, one of the things that I use as an anchor to reconnect with practice, to reconnect with my own sense of who I am as a person, is to rely on basic Buddhist teachings. I go back to them like touchstones. And I think for many of us, one of those common touchstones are the precepts, the 16 Bodhisattva precepts. We study them every year. We study them every spring. And like, it doesn't matter how many times we've studied the precepts, we still study the precepts every spring. It's part of our tradition. And each year, at least I find, I discover new layers, new subtleties, new ways of interacting. But there are also other things that we can use as touchstones and we use as anchors. For some people, they might use the Bodhisattva vows. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it, or I vow to realize it. I think that gets translated a couple of different ways. Another anchor could be the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, whether we're seeing that as grasping and aversion, or we're translating that as craving, or translating that as ignorance. So the truth of suffering, the truth of cause, truth of cessation, that there is an end to suffering, or a way to end suffering. And then the truth of the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. And within that path, another set of anchors, another set of touchstones. And these aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path can be grouped into aspects of wisdom, ethical conduct, or concentration, prajna, shila, samadhi. And these three unfold into the Eightfold Path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And I usually cannot remember that list unless I write it down. So what tends to happen is I encounter an aspect of my day and I'm using the Eightfold Path as a touchstone, and one of them will pop up. It's not as if I grab all of them. One of them will pop up. Ooh, right effort. I need to apply right effort here. Ooh, right concentration. That could be helpful here. Another touchstone, another basic teaching, is the 5 remembrances. And I know I've shared that with this group before. It's one of my favorites. I am of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. And part of what can happen, at least part of what I found in my experiences, is that without some sense of a spiritual anchor, without some sense of a teaching to touch on, that over time, we can begin to lose touch with how we make meaning. We can begin to lose touch with what it is we find most important. That our sense of relying on spiritual truths or experiences can attenuate. And we become biased towards our immediate environment or the immediate culture in which we find ourselves. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can have an impact on how we view the world, how we interact with the world. And another possibility is that without some of these touchstones, we can begin to err towards falling into grasping and aversion. We can begin to slip and start seeing the ego's view as correct, the small self that wants what it wants, and end up creating more suffering for ourselves. And if we rely on meditation alone, if we orient towards practice as the physical practice of meditation, of zazen, we can fall into starting to drift from our sense of ethics. And what I'm meaning there, what I'm referencing there, is that aspect of Zen that has been sort of co-opted by popular culture. That Zen can be used to make employees better workers, or Zen can be used to keep the workers happy, or meditation is great for selling more products. Like there's something there that sees the benefit of mindfulness and meditation and concentration, but it is stripped of it's stripped of any teaching around morality and ethics, of the importance of taking care of each other. It becomes a tool in a toolbox that is separated from any sense of interconnected meaning. And when I see that, it pains me. Because I know the benefit that can come from employing, making use of, participating, embodying Zen and mindfulness and meditation in a way that creates connection, that comes from a place of wholesomeness, that says, we are both here together, and this moment is important. How do we care for each other and ourselves? That's a very different feel. These moral and ethical and wisdom aspects of Buddhism, the Buddhist tradition, are important. They shouldn't be forgotten in the busyness of daily life. If our hope is to address suffering and the causes of suffering, those first two noble truths, if we want to address those in ourselves and others, then remaining connected to the teachings is important. And this fall, we'll be looking at the Noble Eightfold Path in greater detail. Members will have an opportunity to present on aspects of the path, sort of in the same way that we do with our precept study. And I don't know if we're going to do this every year, but we're going to try it out this fall. And even if we think we have a sense of what the Eightfold Path is, right livelihood, I've got a good sense of what that is. We can always find deeper meanings. We can always find a more subtle nuance. We can always find new layers to examine that adds to our practice, that adds to our understanding, that adds to our capacity to meet each moment with kindness and compassion. So I'm curious, for all of you, what teachings do you use as anchors as you go about your day? What teachings do you use when you're at work or quote unquote out in the world? And what helps you stay connected not just to practice and meditation, but also to Buddhist teachings and to Dharma? And that's what I have for now for this talk, but I'm very curious how you relate to this topic.
I would say for me, lots of different ones. Probably go to the precepts most often, but I call on Kanzeon many times a day. Every time I put my foot in a stirrup, I call on Kanzeon to keep me
Mm,
alive for the next hour. And I also have a funny kind of a Christian fusion thing, which I never was a Christian. I wasn't raised a Christian, but I love the 23rd Psalm. And so I
mm,
sort of have this Buddhist 23rd Psalm fusion that that I use quite a lot too.
mm. Are you willing to share that?
No, I thought you would
Okay,
ask that, but
it's okay.
no, yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to. But I resonate with that calling on Kanzeon. There are times I'll walk through the halls in the hospital and just Namo Kanzeon Bosatsu the whole way down the hall.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Mhm,
One thing that I have found, it's only happened for the last, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 years. My manager always starts our meetings with meditation. She goes online and finds a meditation, and it's usually not very long, anywhere from a couple minutes to 5 minutes maybe. And really kind of settles us all in and gets our intention in the right place. It's a lot, I think it's a lot more difficult to be reactionary in these meetings if we don't do that. You know,
mm,
if everybody's tense, they're under a lot of stress, um, it's hard to go into whatever the subject matter is going to be for that meeting.
mhm,
If everybody's coming in stressed and
mhm,
tense.
mhm,
And so she definitely sets our intention and kind of settles everybody and gets everybody in a calmer state, I think, at the beginning of every meeting. And that's been a really nice practice.
mhm.
Um,
But I'm guessing that is more, she's making use of either more secular meditations or um, like multi-faith meditations.
They are. I mean, some of them are from, I definitely recognize a lot of them, some Buddhist teachers. I think she goes in and just tries to find ones that'll fit for the day. And a lot of
Mm,
them are Buddhist teachers, but some of them is just the regular mindfulness kind of things that are out there. But
mhm,
I think that's been really, really helpful.
mhm. Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
I have, have a chicken and egg. Um, I recognize Donna, and over the last 10 years or so, but maybe only 5 years since ordination, uh, a bow towards a person that I'm helping or giving something to,
Mm,
and it confuses them. But if they've done any yoga, they know Namaste. I mean,
mhm,
but the chicken and egg is that I think I've always been this way. So this isn't
Mhm.
because of my Buddhist vows, but
Mhm.
rather the vows grew out of this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
That part of you has always oriented towards that, showing respect.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sharing of stuff and yeah, and sharing of what stuff I have too.
Yeah. Generosity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's interesting that you brought up bowing because I do the same thing to show deference or to show that you're grateful for something. And it's kind of funny because after living in Japan for 6 years, you bow everywhere, every time for everything. And it took me years to break that habit. And now I can do it again. So it's kind of funny. It was, but to answer your question about what we do or what I do,
Mhm.
something I totally struggle with. We have just gone through an in-depth study of the paramitas, and those pop into mind when I'm doing something. Is this wise? Is this am I showing patience? Am I, showing wisdom or whatever? Um, but the other suggestions are great. Yeah, the Eightfold Path. That's a great touchstone. And what I think all of us in this particular study group are wrestling with is how do you keep those things in front of you, on a daily basis, instead of just relying on habit energy and just reflexive behavior, reflexive reactions,
Mhm.
before whatever comes out of your mouth, you have to take a step back and, I don't know, put a filter on it. Does that make sense? Should you do this? Is this the right thing to say, kind of thing? And
Mhm.
it's difficult. It's a skill that I have not come close to mastering, to say the least.
But it's in that rich time of wrestling with it that's where insights arrive. That's where transformation happens. And it's such a delicious place to be. I'm glad you all are wrestling with it.
I like the term wrestling because it is, in a way, the dance that means I'm staying present and taking responsibility for my behavior, wanting to attend to the Eightfold Path. And I like the phrase support harmony in the community, free from hindrance. I live in a facility and I make a point of getting to the dining room for interaction as much as supporting a diet I'm trying to be on. And yet I find when I'm with my friends, even over the phone for a writing group where a couple people are Buddhist, I don't have to kind of check that I slip into some Buddhist phrase and that's cool because it's kind of like letting your hair down where, somebody's maybe going to question. And then I say, oh, well, I'm 79. I don't have to defend myself. But it's just out of respect for the sacred practice lineage that, I'm keeping sort of on my screen. And yet, the talk tonight was good because I fall into recriminations when I think, okay, I have a couple of vows front and center, and I'm not doing well or something, and I think, well, that's just small self getting in the way. But yes, the certain phrases, certain words just culminate in a space where it's, as you said, it's a touchstone for me, and I think actually it's quite glorious, because a 24-hour day can be pretty busy. I mean, if looking at trying to how did I do, then I'm not living in the moment. Thank you for this.
You're welcome. I appreciate your practice and the way you reflect and engage on what you encounter throughout your day and the people you're interacting with. Trish, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so I think what I tend to do is if I'm finding myself, and I'm not sure I got exactly what you're asking for, but if I find myself in a situation where I'm anxious or worrying about stuff, I stop and then I take some deep breaths and just really try and relax my body by breathing, and then and stay present, try and stay present. And then I call on what I call my board of directors. And those are the people and animals that I have been closest to in my life that have gone before me. And I do this tapping thing where I just kind of call on them, and it brings peace to me. And I do call on Kazian because she's great. I mean, she's just was my favorite calming person, calming entity. So, but my board of directors, they just, I don't know, it brings me smiles and warmth and makes me feel calm and safe and confident. And then gratitude. I try and go into gratitude, like if something's not right, or if I'm worried about something like my health, it's like, okay, but look what you have, not what you don't have. And it helps me think that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, you got some good touchstones there.
Jyoshin, you had said something about the language, the Buddhist language. And one of the things that came up for me was I have somebody coming out for the summer, and she is going to come and practice at Wy'East with me. And she's not going to know any of the language. Everything we talk about will be absolutely foreign. I mean, she does do a lot. She listens to a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh and things like that online. But I think a lot of it will really be foreign to her. And so I do think that when new people come, that's what was when you were talking about that. I remember when I first started, there's so much language that I just sat there and just went, what does that mean? I felt just so lost. So, I don't know. I just think that that was what, when you were talking about language, that was what was coming up for me, that somebody's going to be coming and she's not going to know a lot about what we're talking about or what we're referencing, when we're talking about the Noble Eightfold Path and the, I guess just really all the different sections that we kind of bring up at times. So
Then the onus then is on us to, if we use a Sanskrit word or a Japanese word, to also define it in English. And it may be that we can't fully unpack a concept every single time, but we can use our language to help newcomers approximate what we're talking about. So they are part of the conversation, not outside the conversation. And when we have new people in the Sangha, it's what I challenge all of us to remember. And I think it's something that we're fairly good at. Adjusting our speech so folks feel included. Thanks for the heads up, Joan.
I use the meta phrases all the time too. I just realized that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably as much as anything else, because they're easy, and I need them all the time.
Yeah.
I also like to remember the verse of work. Just
from Great Vow.
Yeah, I'd love to start my day with that.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, Jacob? Start your day with what?
The verse of work, and it's just the chant that you say before you start work at session. And it goes, it's a chant, so I won't sing it, but it's like, may we strive.
Now let us chant the verses of work and dedication. Let us strive to purify our mind. Let us strive to actualize. Oh, shoot. I just messed it up. Why can't I do anything?
Oh, isn't that correct?
Oh, my list.
Right. That
Let's
was
strive
right.
to purify our minds.
Good.
Let us strive.
Actualize our practice.
Nice.
Let us strive to benefit
Actualize
the
our
earth.
practice. Let us strive to benefit the earth. Let us strive to liberate all beings. To all Buddhas, past, present, and future. To all beings in the 6 realms. To all those dedicated to the truth, we offer the merits of our labor.
Thank you.
Sorry about my little freak out, but my capacity with lists and verses drives me bonkers.
I mean, you
think
rolled
I get
out
it.
those 8 noble paths like nothing. That's
I
like,
had them
how did
typed
you
out.
do that?
They were on my screen. I knew I was going to forget those. So the lists I wrote out.
I had to cheat with the paramitas too.
Well, Buddhist lists have so many overlaps.
Joan's got a list of lists.
It's my little cheat sheet.
Mhm.
Keep it in my chant book.
Buddhism is good with lists. Because it used to be when teachings were oral, lists were how you remembered things. I don't know how that works because I would have a lot of trouble with that. What were you going to say, Teiko?
I was going to ask if anyone does the meal verse regularly. I mean, you probably do because you just always do. But it's one I do a lot of them regularly, but somehow I don't do that one.
Different people have different verses they resonate with.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a verse that when I was living in the temple, there's a verse that's used with the breakfast offering. A little bowl of oats is taken out to a Buddha statue and offered to the beings, and there's a verse that's recited, and it's the adoration of the Buddha's relics. And there was one time I was doing this with another monk, Ginkgo, and we both started saying it and lost it, and we looked at each other like, what's the next line? What's the next line? And I was like, oh wait, we also have a sung version of this. Let's sing it. And we sung it, and it worked fine. Worked great. brain does funny things.
I just wanted to say that for me, the touchstone is the precepts because the foundation for ethical behavior is what I need most. Over a lifetime, I've kind of, the philosophy, I've got that down, but how to actually apply it, that one's a big one. So the precepts are what I come back to over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are good ones. And they seem so simple, and yet there's so much there.
Several other people in the Paramita study group also do a morning chant or recite something in the morning or sometime during the day, just to kind of, get you back into reality. Like this is where I need to be moving towards. And Trish, I love your board of directors concept. I mean, that's cool. People that I assume inspired you during your lifetime, you kind of say, well, what would these guys do? That's cool.
Yeah.
Like that.
Thank you.
Try and use that.
Yeah, I know they're up there, out there, wherever they are, around me, for me, so.
Yeah. Nice.
It's really good that this has been good for me to listen to because I forget about these different things, like the precepts. When we do the precept study, I read them every day and they always sort of oh, not the right word, but light me up or just kind of, I guess, ground me. So I'm going to start doing that because I forgot about them. So thanks for the reminder. I have them on my phone where they're actually recorded on my phone, so I can sit outside and then listen to them. Yeah.
The meta practice is my go-to. Generally because I'm either pissed off at you or pissed off at me. And meta, just may I be. And if it's the other person, is, man, do you know how nice my life would be if you would? Which is the joking way to do it. But I think from day one, I've not struggled with, but stumbled with any Buddhist concept. Because I listen to a discussion and I'll hear a pro and a con, and no, it's this, and I just get. So I've turned almost all of them into feelings that I don't label, but with metta, there's a definite feeling, and with the breakfast prayer, I don't know what the feeling is, but I like it, and it's deeply embedded here that liking is rubbing off on me and my behavior.
And what effect are you seeing?
See, as I start to describe it, I've ended up using words that I have no idea what they mean to you when I use them. But an effect is I like you better and I like me better. And that's good, especially when you can be really, really big. It doesn't have to be limited to just my friends. And over the course of the last year, I've become a little most of the meta sayings have become pretty rote. So I now take myself to a physical place. You know, in my mind, I take myself to a physical place, and I have, you know, long lists of one. My current favorite one is on the Columbia River right now on Sauvie Island, and I can sit there and I feel, and I wish that you could feel that way too.
Mm.
You know, it's like, and it's because it's boundless. The availability of the feeling with this place is boundless. It's not like I'm giving anything away. I'm just wishing you could feel this also. Anyways, that's what I'm reporting today.
Thank you. And those experiences of yours will ripple out into the world in ways that you may never know of or understand. But
Fine
I
with
don't
me.
doubt that they do. We're at 8:16. Is this a good place to wrap things up? All right. Give me a second to remember the verse. Universe is as the boundless sky, just as the lotus is not wetted by the water that surrounds it. The mind is immaculate and beyond the dust. Let us bow to the highest Lord. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maha Prajna Paramita. Thank you all for being here tonight. It was good. It was good talking with you.
Thank you, Jyoshin.